So hey everybody, I'm here today at the Tulare Community Church in Tulare, California. That's a town just about an hour south of where I live in Fresno. And today we're working on this Rogers 950. Now this is a first generation digital, this PDI technology. This would have been built in the 1990s. And we've got several things to take care of. I was here about a month ago and we took care of light bulbs on the draw knobs, and there was a couple of pistons that were sticking and they seem to still be sticking. So I'm going to do a little more work on that. We got to replace some potentiometers on the expression pedals. I have to replace a battery in the main computer that backs up the piston memory. We're going to start with this music rack. Somehow the brackets got bent, and the problem is that this kind of metal, if you try to bend that back, it might break. So rather than take that chance, I went ahead and got new brackets. And if I end up being able to straighten those without damaging them, then I'll have a couple of spares to keep in the tool kit. But for now we're going to mount some new ones on here. These are really pretty simple. They bolt to this end bolts to a little spacer on the center panel. The music rack itself bolts to this, and then you lift up to turn it down, and when you lift it up it drops into a little notch here, boom, and stays put. With the way this has been bent out of shape though, you can see that the music rack leans forward, and that really doesn't help a lot because music books just fall over it. So for a while now the organist has been taping their music to the music rack, so we're going to see if we can fix that first here. If I think it through, yeah. At any rate. Wow, see, I don't know how they bent it like that. That just seems crazy. But anyway, we're going to put a new one on anyway, so it'll be fine. You know, it almost looks like it was made that way, but obviously not. Yeah, that's weird. So let's see, here's the, we need, yeah, this one. Right and left, so. Okay. This is going to make life a lot easier for our organist. Okay. This is actually the very first time I've had to replace one of these. Okay. So now these, yeah, I don't know about straightening those. That's going to be dicey at best, but we'll see. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to have to replace them. And that's a little bit of a job. You got to take the piston rail down, unsolder all the wires, and they're teeny tiny and all of that, but it needs to be done. I was hoping cleaning would take care of that, obviously not. So, I mean, it kind of worked, but not really, right? Okay. So now we got to move on to the next thing. And the next thing is going to be inside the console. We've got a couple of different things to do there with the back in two halves. And in order to get to the swell shoes, I'm going to take both sides off. Okay, so with the back off, we can see how this differs from the 940. Now the 940 had a couple of different power supplies, had a board panel with analog tone controls, treble, bass, mid-range, that kind of thing. This has a single power supply running the whole instrument. We have this single box here with all of the electronics in it, and I'm going to be taking the shroud off of the expression shoes next. Now, on the 940, it was on the other side, but it was this way, and the circuit boards went in like this. This one, on the other hand, the back plane is down on the bottom, and we have to take this lid off and be very careful with all of these cables in order to make sure we get them in the right spot and not damage them, because basically if any one wire comes loose from any of these ribbon cables that carry data around in the instrument, the whole thing won't work, and that can become more problematic to troubleshoot, but we're going to do that next. The more difficult, what I have to do in here is get the main processor board out, and then I have to replace the battery on it, and we'll look at how that works. But first, I want to get to the potentiometers on the swell pedals here, because that's going to be the trickier of the two jobs, especially getting into these tight spaces like this. Okay. So, looks like we need to take a look at all the felt is good. All right. So it looks like it's really only the crescendo that needs to be replaced. And they're the same type. So now the thing we want to do here is to get a picture of the wiring before I go taking that off. So it looks like the camera went ahead and shut down during that last segment. Sorry about that. But we got the new potentiometer in on the crescendo pedal, basically with the potentiometer doing that, continuous cycle thing. What we do is we get it in position, hook it all up, and then with all the levers and everything in place, we put the pedal in the off position, turn this until we get to just to off, cinch everything down, and then we have crescendo as it should be. So there's a little bit of fiddling around basically to get that done. So the next job we're going to do is replace the memory battery. Now on these older computer units, there needed to be a battery so that when the organ was off, powered down, you would have power running to the memory circuits. So that battery is indicating low on the screen that gives us information about what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and replace that, and we're going to try to replace it in such a way that we don't lose power, and that's kind of tricky to do. Sometimes it can be done, sometimes it can't. Now, on this type of backplane box where the backplane connections are down at the bottom, we have to take the lid off, and the lid has cables coming into both sides. This is basically the input data from the console, keys, stops, all of that. And then here we have our output data and our audio and relays and all of that going out to external amplifiers and preamps and so on and so forth. So this can be tricky on this kind of setup, because if even one of these wires on these two ribbons or this ribbon over here don't make full contact, if the connector gets loose or something, then the whole organ won't work, and that can be really tough to trace out. So what I'm going to do is take off the connectors on this side where there's less likely to be a problem. And again, we're going to take a picture so we can remember which wire goes where. It just makes it easier, Now, backplane. Well, on these systems where we have a backplane, what that means is there's a circuit board down here and a bunch of card edge connectors. And then on the edge, and we'll see that when we pull the main card out, the wire traces terminate on the end of the board, and those form the connection that goes into that card edge connector. So it can be done parallel, where each card has its own group within that set of traces. Or it can be in series, where each card has an address, and you can also do combinations therein. Backplane really isn't used that much anymore. You do see it like on your home computer if you have a desktop, and you go in and you look at the RAM cards and other peripheral items that are attached to your motherboard. You'll find that there will be there's a different screwdriver on this. There will be card edge connectors, and that's how all of your stuff will be hooked up. Somebody's coming in to talk. So, since I'm immune to I have to continue to wear a mask. This is because of my kidney transplant. So I continue to be cautious. All right. still have all of these connections too. That's pretty obvious how those go. I should be able to have to get them off of there anyway. Yep, there it is. Okay. All right. So now we can see our original battery and our replacement battery, and they both have wire leads on them, so they look a little like a, like a electrolytic capacitor, and they're not. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to get this new battery soldered in so that we have continuous power to the memory circuits. And then we're going to cut the old battery off. Now, one of the things we have to be concerned about here is not touching anything other than the battery connections while we're doing this. Okay, there goes the nothing. Down, of course. There we go. There it is. Looks good. And here goes nothing. We'll put it back in the organ. Basically, there's runners that the circuit board slides down into. Okay. There we go. And of course, these DB cables, and its ribbon wires connected. Didn't hear any snaps of real circuit breakers, anything like that. Let's see if the organ works. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to replace what we usually refer to as the pedal bumpers, and they're basically the foam pads that control the travel of the pedals. Now, these pads right now are still in acceptable condition. They're starting to get a little spongy, but theoretically they could go for a little longer. The issue is that these are the blue foam. Now, for a while, Rogers used this blue foam, and it's just fine until it starts to break down. Once it starts breaking down, it's eventually going to get gummy, and that makes it very, very difficult to remove. And at this stage of the game, if you have a Rogers organ and it has this blue foam on the pedals, just replace it. Don't take any further chances with it. Once it gets gummy, it's very difficult to remove it from the wood. It takes a long time, a lot of effort to get the old pads out and get so that you can put the new ones in. Now, the first thing we do is take out the bottom pad, and hopefully these will just, at this point, still just go ahead and come off. I use kind of this thin screwdriver to kind of coax it out, and I try to get a nice clean pull on this. The thing I use is a pair of forceps. I'll go grab those. And that's a little bit like, you know, peeling the label off a bottle of beer. You gotta be kind of careful, coax it out, and then you'll do okay. Now this one I got, let's start in the middle. It seems to want to go ahead and pull from there. Again, kind of like pulling the label off a bottle of beer. Just be patient, let it go. This one's just about to get gummy. Maybe it's gotten gummy at this end. Okay, so now the tricky part is getting the upper pads off. So the plate here on top of the pedal board doesn't come off, and what you have to do is lock a group of pedals down. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. And the way I do it is going to look like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But if you do it correctly with the right type of screws, it works just fine, doesn't do any damage. So we get the bottom bumpers out so we have maximum amount of room here. Now these are the same screws that are used to put like the back panel on a Rogers organ. Now what's critical here is that these threads are rounded. They're not hard, like knife edge threads. So they're nice and smooth. And this is like a number 6 screw. So what's going to happen is it's just going to wedge itself in. It's not going to cut up the fiber board, and it's not going to tear up the felt. It's just going to wedge itself in there and hold the pedal down. And so now you would not, for example, want to use like a sheet metal screw or what they call a general purpose screw, because those have very rough threads that would tear up the felt and tear up the wood. These just kind of form a wedge. I've tried like mute wedges for piano tuning, and you just couldn't get them stuffed in there. I also tried wood wedges, nice smooth wood wedges, but again, the process of trying to get them in there didn't really work well. There's also the method of using a couple of C-clamps and like a bar that fits across here. That can be like really tricky to set up, especially when you're alone. If you have a second person, you can take just a big screwdriver and have them hold it down while you do this. So we lock a group down, and we got to do everything we're going to do on that upper pad all in one shot. So I'm going to show you one of these, and then I'm just going to edit the rest of this out. Now, hopefully this gummy blue foam won't be all that gummy. If we can get a nice clean pull on this. Oh, this looks good so far. A little stickier. Come on. Okay. And this is where our forceps come in. A small little pair of forceps, and then you can grab and yank that out of there. Now, while we have that locked down, I want to go ahead and put the new one in. So that works. Peel the back off. Now, with the sticky side up, what I try to do is get it in there. And I'm just kind of working it in until it's resting on the notch on the end of the pedal. So the pedals go down, there's a notch, there's like a little shelf made, and so if you can get this in there without it getting stuck, kind of ease it on in. Now it's there. So then I can take my forceps, grab top edge, lift it up to the top, and then get my thumb in there and just stick it on down. Get it as high as you can. There we go. Then we can take our screws out and hold the pedal down, ease these out, and no damage. Everything's fine. Okay, so we've done the pedal bumpers. And one thing you want to do when you change the bumpers out is, put a couple of pedal stops on and check them all out. Make sure that they all play. Hitting the pedal slowly to make sure it doesn't come on immediately, but you want it to come on before you hit bottom. And theoretically, this should be just fine, and 9 times out of 10 it is. But as the old bumpers wore down, if somebody decided to go in and adjust the reed switch panel to compensate for the wear, then you can get a situation like we have right here. Where these are not playing. Okay. Did you hear that thump? That's it. The socket wasn't in the pin on this side quite. It dropped in. Now it's fine. Okay, good. The other reason you want to check things out. It all looks good. We still have these 2 pistons that are just going to have to be replaced. All indications are that I didn't lose the memories as they were before. So we managed to get the new battery in and the old battery out without losing power to the memory circuits. The crescendo pedal now works. So both expression pedals work. So everything looks to be in good shape. So time to button everything up and go to the next job.